All right, welcome everybody to another live demonstration. Today we're going to be showing the dependency scanning for an offline environment. And with that said, Seth, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, thanks, Todd. So thanks everyone for joining. My name's Seth Berger. I'm the engineering manager on the DAST team. And we're going to walk through setting up DAST in an air-gapped environment. For those of you that are not too familiar with DAST, DAST is a dynamic application security testing tool, and it works essentially as a spider. It will go to your website and it will find vulnerabilities on your website. So the demo we'll do in 4 different pieces. We're going to walk through the GCP, our Google Cloud setup. The second piece was we will show how to sideload assets into the Google Cloud environment. Depending on our customer setups, that step is going to be a little bit different, but we'll walk through some scripts that some of our customers may be able to use. The third thing we'll do is we'll set up a DAST scan, and we'll set that up using the traditional online setup, and then we'll set it up using the script that you would use in an air-gapped environment. And what we'll see is if you set it up as if it was a non-air-gapped environment, that job will fail. If you use the code that is specifically designed for an air-gapped environment, that will succeed. And then the 4th step is we'll show how this works within the broader context of GitLab. So we'll show the results coming from the DAST scanner into the dashboard and then into the group dashboard. So with that, I'll share out my screen here. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is just walk through our console at Google to show you how we've set up our different environments. So we have a group set up for our secure testing here. And as part of this environment, we set up 2 different servers. The 2 different servers that we have set up, one is our Bastion host, and then the other is our GitLab instance. And so both these are set up with limited access to the internet, and I'll walk through that in a second. The Bastion is what we're going to SSH into and use that to sideload a lot of the assets into our GitLab instance. On our test server, we've got GitLab set up. We've also got the GitLab Docker registry as part of that setup, and we also have some runners. Naturally, a number of customers will probably have runners on separate machines, but just for purposes of this demo, we put it all on the same machine. Let's take a look at the test network here, and you can take a look at the different rules that we have. And this is basically shows you how it's very similar to a true air-gapped. We've got a couple ingress rules, which is port 443 here, and then SSH as well. So that's going to allow us just to connect to the server as a web browser on the secure port. But the main rule that I want to point out is our egress rule, which is right here. And what you can see is that from all IP addresses, it is going to block, it's going to deny all traffic. And so our GitLab instance will not be able to talk to the outside world. And why that's really important is the registry images typically are going to come from registry.gitlab.com. This instance won't have access to that, and that's why we're going to have to sideload those images into that environment. So with that in mind, I've got 2 SSH terminals set up here. One is to our Bastion host, and then the other is to our test host. And just to prove that we've got air-gapped, what I'm going to do is just run a netcat command here. And you're going to see that this is just going to hang because it's trying to access the outside world. This is our Bastion server, and then this is our test server, which again has GitLab running as well as the runners. And you see this is just starting to hang. And I'm going to flip over to my personal laptop here. As you can see, this is my MacBook, and I'm going to run the same command here. Let's see. So I'm going to run netcat on my local machine, and you'll see I get a successful connection. That's my local machine, but if we go back to the test, you can see how this is timing out and it's not able to connect. So I'll stop there because I think that's our first step, just to get feedback and to get a grade. Any questions on what we've shown so far?
All right, so Becky, you typically run the or at least the MC the grading aspect. I'm not sure if you wanted to do that or not.
Sure. I can do it this time, and then can iterate from there. So this is 1 second. I get the sheet up and running. This is column M7, correct? Sorry, L7 for step 1. So I think it's if Kevin is satisfied, we can rate this as a 5. What does the team think on proving air gap?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Any follow-up items from the rest of the group? Great.
How did the registry.gitlab.com entry resolve to that IP address?
How did it resolve to this 254?
To the 35.227.35. Is there like, I'm sorry, maybe I should save this for offline, because
Yeah,
it just hit me.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. My guess is that the egress rules are not even able to access DNS. And so when it's trying to access the DNS server, this might be resolving incorrectly.
Okay,
That's my guess, but I haven't really looked into this.
sorry, I'll take this offline, Seth.
All right, we good, and I can go into how to sideload some of the assets.
Believe so, unless we have some more questions.
Sure. Mo, if you have anything that needs to be brought up, please feel free to raise it next time around if there are things that need to follow up on.
I don't know why it didn't occur to me until now, but in order to get the DNS, like the IP address, it would have to go to the local resolver. And if it's not in the local resolver, it would then get forwarded. So I don't know if that counts as like an outbound connection. So I'm just going to verify like how it resolved the IP to make sure that.
That was a 254 address though, right?
It was actually registry. So it's 35. So that is the public IP address for registry.gitlab.com. So I'm not sure where along. So if you do, sorry if I'm hijacking it, but we can run dig right now. If you have dig on there, go dig registry.gitlab.com, and then we could try to see how it resolved. And I'm very sorry, Seth, for interrupting you. It hadn't. Okay, we don't have dig on there. If you do apt-get or apt-cache, let's search for dig.
So yeah,
Yeah, this
I mean,
is the reason why we go through a demo. This is okay.
Yep.
Like everybody needs to remember, this is okay. You're supposed to ask questions. Now is the time to do this.
Okay.
Exactly.
Well, it'll be in. We could search for an apt cache. I'm more familiar with Red Hat, but it's probably going to be called dig.
Well,
if you go apt
right now
cache.
we're on the Bastion, right?
Yes.
Oh,
and the
my
Bastion
bad.
has DNS. Why would the Bastion not have DNS access? Because the
okay, my bad.
Bastion's
Yep.
the
So
bounce
here's
box.
The Bastion's going to be fine. It's the test instance.
Test box, which does not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that answer your question now?
Yes.
Okay.
I will go back to my goal. Thank you, Nicole.
All right, perfect. So the next step is I just want to walk through how we're going to sideload these. So on my local machine right here, I'm going to SSH into the Bastion. From the Bastion, I'm going to do a Docker pull from gitlab.com, which is where our registry images are stored. Those are going to come back to the Bastion. Those files will get saved and tarballed. We'll use an SCP to move those over onto the air-gapped environment. And then on the air-gapped environment, those will get loaded into the registry. So walk through how to do this through the documentation. So there's two documents that are important to look at. The first is going to be this document, which is the air-gapped in GitLab. And this actually has a couple of sample scripts, and I'll walk you through the script that I have, which is a slight variation of these. The other document that is going to be important to read in conjunction with this is going to be the DAST specific document. So if we scroll down here to air gap, offline, okay. It's gonna give us the name of the image that we're gonna need to copy over. So using this previous script, it tells us where the images are for some of these other analyzers, and then this document tells us the specific image that we need for DAST. And I'll walk you through the script that I used to sideload this, very similar to the documentation, which, let's see if I can pull these up side by side. So this is the generic script over here. Let's do it this way. And basically what this does is it takes the analyzers, creates a loop, and creates a tarball file for each one, and then saves it into a folder. And then this script, which is the next one to load it into the environment, is actually going to SSH, load it into Docker, tag it with a new registry, and then push it. And so this is exactly what we're doing here for DAST. Because there's just one analyzer, it's not gonna do a loop, it's just gonna pull the latest version of DAST. It pulls it here on line 5. It then pipes this over to SSH, loads it into Docker. Once it's on there, we would SSH onto that box, tag that registry. Again, it's gonna have the old name, registry.gitlab.com, tag it with the new air-gapped server, log into the Docker registry, and then push that up. And that's what we've got. So if I come over to the air-gapped install, this has been pushed prior to this demo, and we can look in the container registry here. And we've got the DAST version 1 right there. The other thing that I did in preparation for this demo is we're going to use another image, which is unrelated to DAST really, but is just a sample website that we're going to scan. And that is a sample vulnerable app. It's actually the DVWA, which is the darn vulnerable web app, or damn vulnerable web app. And I've just uploaded that registry image that we'll use in our scripts later. So that's how you would sideload any of these images into your air-gapped environment. This we're able to run because we have some connectivity to the internet, but a script like this would be modified if you're using something like physical media that you actually have to grab images off the internet, put them onto a hard drive, and then move them over into your environment. So I'll stop there and see if there's any questions about how to sideload into the environment.
So it's just a quick one that jumped off. When you look at when things are sideloaded and there's like a column that says last updated, that's not when we sideload it, correct? That's the timestamp on the library itself.
Yeah, exactly. So Docker's really smart about timestamps. So this is when this file was actually written. So this is from the timestamp from the actual Docker image.
Okay, and is it the same with the analyzers? Like one tap before that? I think
yeah, exactly. So if you grab like the DAST analyzer today and load it into your environment, you're actually gonna get the timestamp of when that analyzer was created. So we're pushing out a new analyzer probably every 2 or 3 weeks. So most likely, and we can take a look at that here. So if we come over here and look at our packages container registry, this will probably be a week old. Yeah, it's 3 weeks old. So this was the last analyzer that we produced.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, and for step 2 grading, is there any concerns? Did we meet the criteria?
Yeah, I think everything looked good for me.
All right, perfect. So we will now get into actually setting up a DAST test. One of the things you will notice is that I've got this domain name, and that's just a quick map that I put in my local host file. So you can take a look at hosts. So I just added this IP address to the host name. The reason this is important is GitLab uses the host name internally. And so when GitLab provides URLs, it's going to have the host name. And so if I was accessing this website via IP address, it would load up initially. And then once I start clicking around, it's going to bounce me out to a host name. So I had to set up this entry in my host file to make sure that I didn't get locked out of the site. So I'm just going to come in here. I'm part of a group called tests, and we're going to do it as part of this group so that we can see how these results roll up into the group security dashboard. So under tests, you can see we've got our security and compliance, and that's got our dashboard here. So we'll create a new project here, and we'll call it April 1 DAST demo. And we'll make it public and initialize it with a README. So what I'm going to do for this demo is we'll create two branches. We'll create the traditional installation, and then we'll create a offline installation. So to do the traditional installation, let me walk you through this from a documentation perspective so that it's easy to follow what I'm doing. If we scroll down, to install DAST is very simple. So it's just this bit of code. It's an include the template and then the variable of the website. So we're going to come over here to files, go to web IDE. Now, we don't have example.com, but we are going to have a website called DVWA. We can get rid of the HTTP. And that's going to be our basic website. Now, one of the things that you can do when you set up the scanner is I need to get that website actually going. And so I'll grab this code here. And I'm going to introduce a service. And this is really not related to the air-gapped environment, but I'm just introducing a service, which is our darn vulnerable web application, and giving it an alias. And so what this will allow DAST to do is to scan this website. This service is going to start up when the job runs. So again, this is really irrelevant to our demo. It's just a quick way of getting a website that we can test. The next thing that I want to do for this is just add a quick job in here. Again, it's not related to DAST, but it is just to help us prove that we're in an air-gapped environment. And this is just verify air-gapped environment is working. And this is designed to pass if there's an air-gapped environment and fail if it's able to access the internet. And so this is just a quick demo. Now, one of the things you'll notice is I have not changed anything about DAST. I haven't overridden any of the primary values in DAST. I've just added a service. And so I'm going to go ahead and commit this. I'm going to create a new branch called Ceph GitLab. And this is going to be the online setup. And again, because this is how you set it up if you were not in an air-gapped environment. So I'm going to copy all of this so I've got it. And show. So failure. And we'll go ahead and create that merge request. So while that is running, what we'll do is we'll come back over to files, and we're going to do another branch here. Now, what we need to do is specifically do an install for an air-gapped environment. So we're going to go back to our documentation, and this is just our standard configuration. And if you scroll down, we've got the text that you need to override for air-gapped environment. And so we'll go ahead and copy this, and then we'll need to make a change or two. So what we're doing here is we're going to put in our image, and then we're overriding the script. Now this image is the image that we side-loaded earlier. So we need to grab the URL for that. And that is going to be right here. And if you wanted to look that up, you could come back over here to get our analyzers, DAST. And then you can go to container registry and you can copy that right there. So that's, I'll go ahead and paste that in, make sure there's no typos. So we added the new DAST image. The services is the same as you would have otherwise, and then we added the script. So the script, if you were to look at the raw template, let me pull that up here on GitLab. So this is the template that's behind the scenes. So what we're doing is we're overriding the script here. And so if we look at these side by side, what we're doing is here we're just exporting the website from either the environment variable or a file, and then we're running analyze-t in the website. For the air gap version, we're going to do the exact same thing. So we're exporting the website right here. We're analyze-t in the website. And then there's this little bit of code which is necessary to make this run in a air gapped environment. And this is auto update add-ons equals false. And so within DAST, it uses rules to run tests against your website. And what this is doing is it's saying, hey, use the rules that are baked into DAST. Don't go out to the internet and get new rules. And so it's just severing that connection. And then there's another variable. It's a little bit of a weird syntax. And this is -z, silent. And this is passing the silent parameter into the underlying scanner. And silent in the underlying scanner basically says, hey, if you have any connections that you want to go out to the internet, forget about it and don't do it. And so it will make sure that there's no connections going out to the internet. So these two are going to are really what makes this air gapped available. So that should be it. Let me go ahead and save this. And I could lint this, but I'm going to live dangerously here. And hopefully it will run.
Sorry, when we're done, which line are we in the steps now? Is it the copy paste in Web IDE?
Yep.
And add the check air gap job?
Yep. And I can back up and walk through the other steps real quick here.
Thank you.
I'll get this running since the pipelines should take a minute or two to run. Let me just peek in on those. Okay, great. So those are running. So while we have those set up, what I want to show you is the dashboard. So the security dashboard is going to be blank for this project. And again, the reason is the security dashboard is going to get populated with values based on the master branch. If we look at our repository, there is nothing on our master branch other than a README file. So there are no vulnerabilities in the dashboard at this point. Further, I want to walk through the configuration screen, and you'll see that nothing is configured. And again, this configuration screen is based off the master branch. Right now, we did these configurations on branches, and so according to this screen, nothing has been configured. And in our next step, what we'll do is we'll merge these onto the master, and you'll see these screens change. So let's go back to our merge request here. And we've got our failure, and this other one is still running. So let's take a look at our pipelines. So our pipeline, this is our online setup. And again, this is how you would set it up if you had connections to the internet. We can take a look at the job here, which was verified the air gap. So it did verify that there is an air gap. And then this job has failed. And if we look at the job, it's very easy to see what's going on. So we've got, it's using Docker registry, registry.gitlab.com, so on and so forth. It tries that for a little while and it fails to get it. And then eventually gives up and times out. So this job has failed, and that's what we were expecting. And we'll now come back to this other one, which is since finished. Again, we've got the two jobs, verify air gap. We expected to pass, and then it actually ran the scan. So let's take a look at these results. So if we scroll up into these results, a couple of key things is you can see that it's pulling our local analyzer. So it's able to pull that successfully. And then if you scroll down, it's able to run the scan and you can see it running through each of the different scans here. When it's done, it uploads the asset. So that means if we come to our pipelines and look at our pipeline here, we should see a security tab. And these are the vulnerabilities that it's found. If we go to our other pipeline, the one that failed, we won't have that data because we just have a failed job. So we'll take a look real quick at what these vulnerabilities are and show you how this works. So these are just an X-frame options header. It found this problem on a number of pages and outputted all the pages where that occurred. And then it gave us some other vulnerabilities. So we could tab through these, do all that, or click into them and look at any of the details. So I'll stop there. And then our next step is we'll merge this and see what the master, what this looks like on the master branch and then at the group level. So any questions on that?
Yeah, I had a question. I was curious. So I think for the purpose of the demo, we're doing it this way, but I just want to confirm. So the obviously the vulnerability site, the website you're trying to scan, and that's why you needed the variables. If we were scanning our own site, then you wouldn't need those pieces of the YAML. Is that correct, or do you always need those? Do you know what I mean?
I think, let me go back.
If you go back to the YAML, I can point to it.
So let's do the offline since that's the one that's working.
Yeah, sure. I just want to confirm I understand. So like the variable for the website, the service.
So the only thing that I added for this demo that you're not going to have for other, that you may not have for other instances is line 9, 10, and 11. So you're always going to need a website, right? That's just the URL that you're scanning.
Sorry. I thought that would, like, if this was my own project of my own application, wouldn't it be scanning it after it deployed it to the review app?
Yeah, so if you use review apps, this would be the structure for the review app. And review apps, I believe.
In the variable there for the website, there's like a specific variable setting, I think, for review apps.
Okay, maybe I just wasn't familiar with it. I was just trying to make sure I understood that. I mean, I think everything's
yeah, so I believe for the review apps, it uses the environment URL. So if you're using review apps, you actually would not need to have this website URL here at all because it's going to get picked up from your environment URL.
Okay, that's where I was confused, and that's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm my assumption. Okay, cool. And I think it's fine. We're doing the demo.
It's totally how it's up to how they've configured their environment. So if they're deploying to a static test dot whatever, they'd want to put that in there. Like if that was their deployment flow, that they were not using review apps, but going to a static test or UAT or whatever environment, they'd use that.
Right.
If they were using a review app, they would just be using the environment variable that Seth just showed. So it completely depends on their GitLab.
No, I was thinking like generic auto DevOps, like vanilla, out of the box GitLab is what I was thinking. Because I haven't had to do that before, and I just was trying to understand it. So, all right, cool. That was helpful. Thank you.
And a customer could always override this line here if their URL is, regardless of how they're generating their URL. They may have, crazy ways of generating URLs, or they can override this line and create their own structure.
Sure. I don't think that'll be a problem. I just wanted to understand it. Thanks.
All right, so I believe we're ready for grading step 3. Is that correct?
Sure. I do have a comment overall. Since the format of the scorecards are changing, and I don't know how to bake this into the grade because it wasn't designed to take in this type of ask, is that when we have a single source of truth, let's make sure that the step-by-step is followed through. Because if now we have a single source of truth, we enable rich text editing. Let's really make sure that we have it step-by-step and follow through with each step. I think when we started off, a lot of the setup was in the documentation, which is great because it means that we're following through what we're showing our customers. But please make it clear and then make sure the steps are correct. That's my overall recommendation on next step. Yeah,
Okay.
Great progress.
Okay, so were the steps for step 3 satisfied based off the definitions that we have?
Yeah, I mean, I believe so.
All right. Any dissenting views? Okay, thanks. You want to move on to step 4, Seth?
Yeah, so we've looked at getting the pipeline working. We've shown it working on online or failing on online configuration, succeeding in offline configuration. So the last piece is just to look at the security dashboards. So again, we're going to see a blank security dashboard here. This is for the particular project, and then we'll go over to tests, and we'll see our security dashboard here. And we'll see our April 1st demo here, but there's no vulnerabilities that are coming up. So I will go back to our project and just do a merge on our succeeding pipeline. And then what we'll do is we will see that those vulnerabilities get updated. So that's going to go on to master. Master is going to run, and then we should see those show up here in a little bit. So while we're waiting for that, happy to answer any questions.
I'm just curious. So I know you specifically picked this particular image for the hosted site. I'm just surprised there's nothing higher than a medium in it, given that it's designed to help you test DAST.
Yeah, so this is the image is actually more of a tutorial for people to interactively play with. And it's actually not fully configured in the way to expose the most vulnerabilities.
So do we use a different image for our own internal like testing of the actual DAST independent of the air gap piece, which I know is what we're focusing on here? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so there's a number of different projects that we use. WebGoat is one. This is a new one that I was playing around with. And there's a couple others that our vulnerability research team uses that are more standard for benchmarking these tools. What I was trying to do is and the reason I chose this one is it's extremely lightweight. It's actually a really basic PHP website. And so it spins up really quickly. We can get the vulnerabilities without sitting there. WebGoat is a lot more expensive and it takes a little bit longer to run.
Yeah, I figured. I just wanted to clarify. Thanks.
All right, looks like our pipeline is done. So we've got, here's our security dashboard. We can see the mediums and the lows. We saw this in a previous demo, but this has links out to third-party websites that give more of the information on these vulnerabilities. It's gonna work on my machine because my machine's obviously connected to the internet. If a user is connecting to this, if he or she doesn't have access to the internet, these links are naturally going to be broken. But you can get it does link over to the URL of the DAST that DAST was scanning. So if that's a local website, that's going to work. And then it links over to everything else that should work internally. You can create an issue, dismiss a vulnerability, do all that kind of stuff, standard. And then we'll go out to our group level here, and we'll take a look at security. And what we should see is those vulnerabilities coming in. So if we filter just on the April 1st demo project, you can see all those vulnerabilities now flowing through to the dashboard. You can also filter just on DAST. Do all projects that way. So if you just want to see your DAST scanners, this is actually showing one of the sample projects that I did before. And then here's our April 1st DAST demo. And that concludes my demo.
Can you open one of those up again for me, please?
One of these?
Yeah, just any one.
Yep.
The text in the solution and the description, is that's is that getting that from the DAST image that you brought over? Okay.
Yeah, so in the DAST image, it has what the way DAST is structured, it's using a tool called ZAP, which is Z Attack Proxy, and it has a number of add-ons. And each of those add-ons comes with their own set of rules, as well as their vulnerability metadata. And so this one is coming from a scanner most likely called reverse tab nabbing. And that has all this metadata built into the scanner. So that when it finds this vulnerability, it actually creates all this information, and then that's all in the artifact, the security report artifact.
Okay, cool, thanks.
All right, any more questions?
And I'm just going to answer this one because it's been asked on the other demos, is will anyone be able to click those links? And it really depends on their computer. So in our specific case, because we're viewing it from the Bastion, yes, but it would depend on the computer of the developer who's viewing that vulnerability interaction, whether it would resolve or not. And so I know people have asked that, and we're trying to make that clear in the documentation. I've got some MRs around for that.
If the users follow the documentation, would they be home free, or do we anticipate any viewing challenges from a user standpoint?
Like for interacting with those links, or?
Overall, also looking to get feedback from Kevin as well if there's any concerns on the customer standpoint.
Yeah, you're talking about the documentation that's already published on docs.gitlab.com that Seth was using earlier to copy and paste from. Is that what you mean?
Meg, are you talking about the GitLab documentation, or are you talking about the vulnerability documentation here?
I think, Nicole, you meant vulnerability documentation, correct?
Well, this is in our user documentation. I've got MRs stating, depending on the way that you have configured your offline environment, will depend whether auto remediation or links displayed within the vulnerability interactions will resolve, which if they're working in an air-gapped environment, that should be they should understand that. And I mean, I can wordsmith it more if we need to, but basically it's 100% dependent on how they've set up their environment. And if it is a true air gap, those will not work under any condition, and they know that. They can't get further information.
And yeah, I'm fine with that. I agree with that. And to cover both points, reviewing the docs for DAST, they're very straightforward. They make sense. I could do them. And I think they explain like what the different options mean, which is nice. So I'm good with the docs as they are. And we can ask Nicole, we can actually, one of our representative from one of my customers is planning to be on the next demo. So we can ask that question and get an answer straight from them.
Now, one of the things about the GitLab documentation, as I understand it, is it's hosted on GitLab today, and you can also get it, I think, /help or /docs. But my understanding is that that's actually going away, or the plan is to get rid of that. So one of the concerns is if you have to go to docs.gitlab.com, that may be an access problem for people that are in an air-gapped environment. So
there's an issue in post MVC right now, and I would love, like, we can definitely discuss it, but I would love all thoughts to go into that issue around how we handle that exact issue.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Are you saying that the simplified help that's available locally is going away?
So that's what I've heard from our technical writing team. Was, I believe, if you go /help. So this, you can access all the DAST documentation, or all the documentation. So
yeah, it's not a copy of docs.gitlab.com. It has like a simplified version. It's not exactly the same, but yeah, having that in some cases is extremely useful.
You got a
And
direct
there's
link from the configuration
two-
page.
There's two concerns relative to help right now. One is it doesn't include everything, obviously, because it is a simplified version, and we want to make sure, how do we make sure the offline documentation for secure is included. And then the second one is I've heard that it may not be, like it may even be getting pared down more, and it's not versioned necessarily. So there's a couple things I think we need to, as a group, discuss with the technical writing team and solve for. So I'll link that issue in our notes, because I would love everyone's to have a more thorough conversation around this, because it is concerning.
Yeah, because I know the quick links, like for example, the links that are helpful, like on Markdown and quick actions and things like that, I know people use all the time in air gap networks. It would be nice to have those, like this, they're okay with the simplified one, not the full-fledged one, but the simplified is helpful in some cases. Now this configuration here for DAST probably would be okay to be in just on the doc side, but yeah, so yeah, I'd like to be part of that conversation.
Where do we capture the ability to look at all the docs in the scorecard? Are they integrated into, say, step 2 and step 3? Because that's when our users need to look at the documentation to set things up. Because what I'm asking is where do we explicitly track that documentation is fine for users?
I was looking for it in step 2,
Yeah.
where he pulls it up.
That's where I think we've been tracking it as step 2, because to do the setup, you have to copy from the user documentation.
Got it. So and please don't take this the wrong way, to make sure that Kevin is satisfied, I would suggest having 2 and 3 be 4 for now, until we are home clear on solving everything in aspects of the documentation. And then that should be a 5. What did the group think?
I think the technical writing team changing in the future the way help works is not necessarily directly correlated to this, but I'll leave that up to Kevin.
Well, I mean, is it going to be removed in 12.10?
I have not heard that. I've heard it's a discussion. I haven't heard a date on it.
So do we even have a timetable? Do we even have a timetable for that plan?
I haven't heard a release date yet.
Okay, if we don't have a timetable, like I'd strongly suggest that Nicole, you escalate with David and like make sure this is prioritized, that we consider this seriously before we would deprecate capability, right? Like this is a good example of deprecation of a capability where it's germane, and I would not view it as an issue to this release until we have a timetable, which it feels like that's just how we do it. Like I'm all for collaboration, but on this one, it just seems like we just need to be very explicit about not changing customer experience.
And I'll be honest with you. So from my perspective, I'm fine with keeping these 5s for the reason that those quick links where they need to quickly look something up and not switch networks is very useful. But most people working on air-gapped have the ability to view the other network on another monitor right next to them. And so the ability to get to the full docs, they know they have to go to full docs, for some stuff all the time. So I think it's fine as is.
Okay, great.
We could add, if this is something we want to show during the next demo, we could add a step that goes from the configuration page where we show this feature is not configured. There's a tooltip there that point to the local documentation for this specific feature. So this could show directly the documentation that is embedded with the GitLab instance. The problem is until we put that documentation into 12.10 and 12.10 is released, we won't see it into the air-gap instance.
Well, yeah, when I was referring to the quick like tooltip type stuff, that was for like kind of the everyday stuff like Markdown and quick actions is a great example. For this kind of thing, you do it once. I think it's perfectly fine to not have that as a tooltip quick action type. I mean, a tooltip thing, and I think going to the official website's version is okay. But and that's just my opinion.
Like I said, I linked it. I've got 211619 for us to discuss it internally around what is our needs for our customers. And it's in the post MVC Epic, and then go to that to the technical writing team. So if everyone could read the notes later and remember to put in like your use case and like your user things and stuff. So when we go to the technical writing team, it's not just us whining. I'd love to have, specific comments if anyone can add them.
All right, so getting back to the demo itself for step 4, did we satisfy all the changes that we showed, all the configuration, the dashboards, and what have you?
Let's see. The only thing we didn't do was, I think in the previous demos, just for completeness, I think they would create one issue and dismiss one, but I've seen those work multiple times, so I'm confident it wouldn't be a problem. But that's the only thing that I saw that was missing when we did this demo, step 4.
All right, is that, Seth, is that something that we could do real quick
Yeah.
for completeness?
Yep.
Okay.
So we're here on, we'll come over to dashboard, and we can take one of these items, create an issue. So we've got an issue there. And then we can come back to the dashboard, and we can dismiss this, and it's gone. Does that cover the use case?
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions around the demo? All right. Anything else we should cover before we end?
How about a round of applause?
Yeah, great job. I think you're the first one to get all 5s, right?
Woo-hoo. Well, yeah, thanks to everyone else who put all the assets together. I just stitched everything together. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I know I may be asking questions, but please assume I have positive intent and making sure we cross all the check boxes. And this is a great score to get. Congrats.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording.